belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Good morning, everybody. This is To The Point on GB News with me, Patrick, Christys and Mercy Muroki on your TV and on your radio. And we're here all the way through until midday with a really big show for you today.
Yes, make sure you get in touch with your views, as usual, as well. GBviews at gbnews.uk. And we'll be getting to those throughout the whole show. But first, let's give you the latest news. Good morning, it's 10 o'clock. I'm Rhiannon Jones in the GB newsroom. Thousands of homes in parts of northern England and Scotland have woken up without power after Storm Dudley battered the UK last night. Winds of more than 80 miles per hour caused power cuts and travel disruption. All that ahead of a second storm, Storm Eunice, which is set to move in later today. GB News' Bethany Elsey reports.
Another storm and another morning where thousands of people wake up without power. Northern Power Grids say 19,000 people have experienced power cuts as Storm Dudley battered the nation. 1,000 across the north of England have yet to be connected. And Electricity North West say 1,700 homes in Wigan and thousands more in Lancashire are without power. But it isn't just chaos at home. Travel across the country has also been impacted. ScotRail cancelled all its services from yesterday afternoon, and it could be midday before trains start to run again. And for services that did run, it was trouble. In North Ayrshire, fallen trees severely damaged overhead structures and blocked lines. And in Scotland and Wales, an unexpected visitor, a number of trampolines were blown onto the tracks and under trains. Yellow weather warnings remain in place for Scotland, Northern England and Northern Ireland, and 42 flood alerts have been issued across the country, mostly around Yorkshire, the Welsh borders and the Midlands. And there's a new storm on the way, bringing what the Met Office say is a danger to life. Amber warnings have been issued across most of England ahead of the arrival of Storm Eunice tonight. Bethany Elsey, GB News.
The US has accused Russia of adding a further 7,000 troops near the Ukraine border, despite Moscow claiming it's withdrawing personnel. Russia denies any plans to invade Ukraine and this week announced a pullback of forces. But a White House official says this could be yet another false claim. Meanwhile, Foreign Secretary Liz Truss warns that Europe shouldn't be lulled into a false sense of security and that the crisis could last for months. The Defence Secretary Ben Wallace says NATO's principle of welcoming new members into the organisation is absolutely clear.
Fundamentally, we remain an open-door organisation. I've made it very clear to the Kremlin that, countries choose NATO. NATO doesn't go around choosing the countries. It is not the case, as President Putin often asserts, that somehow NATO is a sort of country of its own going around looking for countries to join. We have the open-door policy, and then 30 members make that decision.
Almost 15 million people were left waiting for post over the Christmas period. That's according to Citizens Advice. The research shows that 2.5 million people missed important documents, health appointments, or were unable to pay a fine or bills. More than half of those surveyed went a week without their post. A group of charities supporting people with a weakened immune system are calling for COVID testing to remain free of charge. 18 health charities warn that coronavirus still poses a serious risk to some people. They fear that abandoning the measures risks making those with a weakened immune system second-class citizens. It's thought the government's Living with COVID strategy for England, set to be published on Monday, could signal an end to free PCR and lateral flow tests. In a first of its kind, new government guidance will help schools teach complex issues such as racism and homosexuality in an impartial way. The new guidance will include history lessons based on factual information presented in a balanced manner. Education Secretary Nadeem Zahawi says it aims to help teachers avoid promoting contested theories as fact. The guidance also aims to make sure that no subject is off limits in the classroom. And the amount of Scottish salmon bought in the UK last year increased by more than 4.5 tonnes, a new report has found. Salmon Scotland shows 63,000 tonnes of the fish was sold in the UK last year. That's a rise of 7.8%. Exports are back at pre-pandemic and pre-Brexit levels. Salmon remains our biggest food export, followed by bread, chocolate and cheese. This is GB News. We'll bring you more as and when it happens. Now it's back to Patrick and Mercy with To The Point.
Yes, good morning, everybody. This is To The Point right here on GB News with me, Patrick Christys, and Mercy Muroki. We're on your TV, on your radio, and of course, we're online now as well. And we've got loads for you today, so here's what's coming up.
Yes, it's been reported that Russian troops are still arriving at the Ukrainian border despite President Putin's claim of a partial withdrawal of Russian forces. Mark White, our Home Security Editor, will be joining us to bring us more.
Yes, indeed. Now, a staggering 43% of people have said that their mental health has gotten worse since the start of the pandemic. We'll be joined by Angie McGrandles, wellbeing expert, to talk us through why this is and also what we can do if we are struggling as well.
Yes, and campaigners in Staffordshire have been fighting to, quote, stop the stink, as a landfill site has been emitting a terrible smell affecting thousands of households. We'll be discussing this a little further on.
Yes, indeed. And we have all of that coming up and much, much more. You can get in touch with us as well, gbviews at gbnews.uk. But first, in an unusual twist, we're doing things differently today. Mercy is going to be talking about the royal scandals and celebrating the Queen's Platinum Jubilee.
Royal controversy is nothing new. It's as old as the royals themselves. Just over the last few decades alone, the royal family has had its fair share of scandal. King Edward VIII abdicated in 1936 so he could marry a divorced American woman. Our future King Prince Charles had an affair leading to a divorce and Diana's 1995 bombshell tell-all interview. There were cash for access claims on the part of Prince Andrew's former wife, Fergie, in 2010, who was also once photographed in a somewhat compromising position with her financial advisor while still married to the prince. And Prince Harry once thought it would be a good idea to turn up to a fancy dress party dressed as a Nazi. And a royal crisis currently looms as the Metropolitan Police revealed yesterday they're investigating allegations of a cash for honour scandal at Prince Charles's charity. I must say, Prince Charles' team have stated publicly that he was not aware of any links between donations to the foundation and any honours. And, of course, this came just days after Prince Andrew settled a sex assault claim against him, of course, for claims he has always denied. And then there's Prince Harry, who effectively abandoned his family and now is set to publish a tell-all memoir later this year. And yet, against all this madness, one person remains as graceful, dignified and dutiful as ever, the Queen. As the news was coming out about Andrew's court settlement and Prince Charles's investigation yesterday, what was the Queen doing? Well, she was pictured smiling, meeting army officials at Windsor Castle as she returned to her duties after a minor COVID scare. The day before, she was holding virtual audiences with ambassadors from Estonia and Spain. I'm perpetually in awe at our Queen. I really am. She's 96 in just a few weeks. She's the world's oldest and longest reigning monarch. She's just 2 years away from being the longest reigning monarch ever in history, a spot currently taken by Louis XIV of France. She's overseen 14 prime ministers, and I love this fact, 8 out of 10 people in the UK today were born during her reign. 8 out of 10 of us have never known anything else. She is, by just about every measure I can think of, an extraordinary woman. So, in this Platinum Jubilee year, as we prepare to celebrate the Queen's 70 years of service to the people of the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth, I have an idea. Whatever psychodramas take place with other members of the royal family this year, whichever narcissistic royals try to take the spotlight, whichever graceless dukes and duchesses decide to publicly embarrass themselves, let's not let it overcloud what could be a year of celebration and appreciation for Her Majesty. We're incredibly lucky to have her. Sadly, the laws of nature means it's a privilege that we can't enjoy forever. But whilst we can, let's very much enjoy it. Let's make this a year of celebrating the Queen, what she's done for her country, what she means to the nation and the Commonwealth. After the 2 years we've had, we deserve it. And most importantly, she deserves it.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, she's kind of been a rock, hasn't she? A steadfast rock throughout it all. And I think, you know, it's the longevity of it all, of course it is. But it's the fact that I can't really see or think of a gaffe or even her misspeaking. And in fact, she's very, very good at making it look like she's been kind of caught saying something, right? So, for example, where she kind of said that the Chinese government had been very rude, and she was also talking about when we were doing the environmental conference in COP26, whatever, you know, saying they still haven't been told whether or not these people are coming, and she makes it look as though she's just been caught out, but actually she knows exactly what she's doing.
Yeah, well, she's definitely the backbone of the royal family. I mean, I can't see anybody in the royal family at the moment that will ever have anything like the kind of legacy she's had, because she's overseen historic changes during her reign to the world, really.
That figure, that 8 out of 10 figure, I wasn't aware of, and I think it's actually really, really cool. You know, the idea now that 80% of us in this country have only known
Queen
Queen's
Elizabeth.
reign.
Yeah.
I must say, I did see a picture of that picture I think you spoke about, actually, of her yesterday, and bless her, she is looking a little bit frail now, isn't she?
Well, she is 96 in a few weeks. Give her a little break.
No, just saying, you know, you do.
Yeah.
It catches up for you. She is human.
Well, Charles Ray is a royal expert and former royal editor at The Sun, and he joins us now. Good morning, Charles. Thanks so much for joining us. What do you, I mean, I can guess what you're going to say, but what do you make of the fact that the Queen is still going about her duty? She's smiling, she seems charismatic, and she just looks like she's still so blessed to sort of serve her country.
Well, Mercy, thanks very much, but you've made me feel very old this morning, because unfortunately I was born just before the start of her reign, so I'm beginning to feel very old this morning. I mean, the Queen is fantastic. There is no doubt about it. And Patrick, you just alluded to the fact that I can't think of one thing that she's done where you could say is a gaffe or it's wrong. And I think you're absolutely right. I think the things that she says, and she appears to be caught out saying, she knows exactly what she's saying and where it's being said. I mean, this is a woman who's served this country, you know, for 70 odd years without a blemish, and it's unfortunate that there are so many members of her own family who seem content and happy to try to spoil the party, but they won't. We'll still have the party, we'll still honour the Queen, and quite rightly so.
Yeah, absolutely. And so are we going to be basically celebrating on and off throughout the course of the year? Because, I mean, that sounds fantastic.
Well, we are. It's a question of now puddings, pop stars, parades, and a public holiday. The hunt for a platinum pudding has already started. It's been organised by Fortnum and Mason, and there's going to be a judging panel headed by Dame Mary Berry, who else to lead the judging. And then in May, we have a big performance at Windsor Castle, 1,000 performers, 500 horses, and that's going to be a pageant through history from Elizabeth I to the present day. And then a very special on June the 2nd, Trooping the Colour at Horse Guards Parade. On the same day, or at night time, where there's going to be a massive pop concert. Now, we don't know who's going to be appearing there, but you can bet your bottom dollar it's going to be pop royalty who'll be there performing for the Queen. We've also got beacons being lit throughout the country, in the Channel Islands as well, and the Isle of Man. A special Thanksgiving service at St Paul's Cathedral. And sorry, that's the night of the party, the pop party. I got that bit wrong. Sorry about that. And then we've got after that we've got the big lunch, where millions of people around the country will be able to have lunch, parties, street parties, and everything else. So quite a full program.
Indeed.
And do you think another thing that we're anticipating, I suppose, this year is that publication of Prince Harry's memoirs, which are said to be tell-all, they're said to be explosive, who knows? But do you think that's going to ruin the spirit at all?
Well, no, because it's now been delayed. I think it's going to come out towards Christmas, this book, in which there's supposed to be these explosive suggestions from Prince Harry. He's the word is that he's not going to be very complimentary about Camilla. Harry and Meghan have not yet made any public comment about the fact that she's going to be called Queen Consort. So we'll have to wait and see. So fortunately, we should have all the sort of controversies out of the way, or at least on the back burner, while we celebrate the Queen's Jubilee.
Indeed. Will all of this actually be affecting her? Or do you think, like frankly most of us now, she's stopped caring about Harry?
I don't think she can stop caring about Harry. I mean, after all, he is her grandson, and it's like all families. All families have problems, and they have problems with members of that family. And I think it's very hard for people to stop loving, a member like a son or a grandson because they've not done something correctly or right, no matter what. No, I think she will be obviously not at all happy with the way things have gone, not just for Prince Harry, but obviously Prince Andrew and now Prince Charles. So that's three princes now in the soup, so to speak. But she won't stop loving them. I mean, she'll be concerned, but she'll deal with it in her usual stoic manner.
Right, Charles, thank you very, very much. It's been fantastic to have you on, and thank you for always making the time for us as well, Charles Ray. There, of course, royal correspondent of note.
Yes, well, joining us now is our Home and Security Editor, Mark White, to give us the latest updates on the developing situation in Ukraine.
Yes, indeed. As far as Western leaders and intelligence agencies are concerned, they're saying don't believe Russia when it says that it is withdrawing troops from the area. There is no tangible evidence to suggest that that is the case. In fact, they say that an additional 7,000 troops have gone into that area. So it was about 130,000, but actually in recent days, they're now putting the figure at about 150,000 Russian ground forces in Crimea, in eastern Ukraine, and right up to Belarus. Now, the Russians say they're there to take part in what are regular exercises that are carried out every 18 months or so. But of course, it's very provocative right on the border of Ukraine. And we know that Vladimir Putin is very exercised about the prospect of Ukraine ever joining NATO. I'm not sure it was ever really going to be on the cards that Ukraine would join NATO, not for many years anyway. It can't under NATO rules at the moment, because any country with a current border dispute, which of course Ukraine has, having had the Crimea annexed by Russia, and also fighting a low-level insurgency in eastern Ukraine, it would not qualify to become a NATO member. So there's a lot of questioning really as to what it is that Vladimir Putin is really trying to achieve here. But one thing he has actually succeeded in doing is galvanized NATO at a time where, of course, especially during the presidency of Donald Trump, where NATO was being questioned and the legitimacy of NATO going forward was being questioned. Now, of course, NATO feels rejuvenated to the point where just yesterday, Jens Stoltenberg, the Director General of NATO, was saying that there would be additional ground forces from NATO heading to Eastern Europe, including an additional battle group in Romania headed by France.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? And there's been an apparent cyber attack to hit Ukraine's defence ministry and armed forces as well, 2 Ukrainian banks, I'm just reading here. And do you think we're witnessing Vladimir Putin having some kind of midlife crisis here? Do you think this could be what it is? That, like with a lot of these dictators, they can, towards the, middle/end of their reign, they can They can ramp it up a bit, can't they?
Well, yeah.
They start talking about legacy, you know.
I don't know how long he's going to live, but I think he's even past his midlife, isn't he? He's about late 60s now, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he has always been, very bitter about the fall of the Soviet Union and the demise of the great Russian Empire. He is trying, of course, to ensure that that Russia has greater influence, particularly in its own backyard. And to a degree, he has succeeded with the aggression and the bullying of neighbours in getting world attention. Leaders from many Western countries have been making a beeline to Moscow to sit at that massive big long table with Vladimir Putin, to sit down and listen to the concerns that he has about the geopolitics in his particular locale.
And there's news coming out, claims that Priti Patel is set to ditch those golden visas for billionaires. She says, do you think that's anything to do with what's going on at the moment, or actually was that something that the government was intending to do anyway?
Well, I think it's probably had added impetus because of what is going on. There has been quite a bit of criticism of the way in which very rich Russians, billionaires, are really not facing much in the way of any sanction, even though many of them still have very definitive links to the Kremlin.
We actually just have an update right now. I've just come through. It's quite a big one, potentially, I think. The Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine has just stated that Ukrainian, well, look, I'm not going to do very well with this name, unfortunately, Stanisia Luhanska village was shelled with heavy weapons from the occupied territory of the Donbass. Civilian infrastructure has been damaged. He says, we call on all partners to swiftly condemn this severe violation of the Minsk agreements by Russia amid an already tense security situation. So, Mark, a moving situation.
So this is one of the big fears. Effectively, the Donbass area is this area in eastern Ukraine where for a number of years now they've been fighting a low-level insurgency with Russian-backed separatists. Now, I say a low-level insurgency, 13,500 Ukrainians have been killed in the fighting. There was a great deal of concern that those separatists would seize upon the fact that there were Russian forces there and the potential for significant military action on behalf of Russia into Ukraine to actually stoke up the tensions, to intensify their military engagements with Ukraine in the hope, and indeed West analysis has suggested about the potential for incidents that could be used as a pretext by Russia to go in to Ukraine, to eastern Ukraine, in Russia's eyes, or at least they would claim outwardly, to protect those people, those Russian-backed separatists in that particular region. So this is very concerning. As I say, the troops from Russia have been there in this region for some considerable time. We know that the finger pointing, the rhetoric has been stepping up in recent days from both sides. And one of the things they've been warning of is just this, about the potential for these separatists to step up their military engagements with Ukraine that might then provide a pretext for Russia proper to move into that part. So let's just watch what happens in the coming hours, but very, very worrying.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, he's got a bit of form with this kind of stuff as well. There's similar incidents in Syria where he famously referred to these people as these little green men. Actually, it turns out they were obviously Russian troops. They weren't necessarily operating as official Russian troops, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, he's quite well versed when it comes to this kind of trickery, isn't he, really? But, Mark, thank you very much. Oh, yeah.
Yes, thank you, Mark. Yes, just a reminder there that Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine just said Ukrainian Stanisia Luhanska village was shelled with heavy weapons from the occupied territory of the Donbass. So that's a developing story there. And of course, we'll bring you more updates as we have them. But after the break, we'll be talking about the new £25 million defence deal signed between the UK and Australia. Don't go anywhere.
Hello, I'm Aidan McGivern from the Met Office. Storm Dudley is now moving away, but in the next 24 hours, Storm Eunice will arrive, a more powerful storm, bringing widespread disruption and, in places, dangerous wind speeds. But this morning starts off with blustery conditions for many. However, a mixture of sunshine and, in the north, showers, those falling as snow over the higher parts of northern England and Scotland. Then further showers push into Wales and the southwest for a time. And away from the showers, there will be some brighter spells. The winds moderating through the day, coming down by the afternoon, but staying cold in the north. 5 or 6 Celsius for Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern England. 10 or 11 Celsius for Cardiff, London, Southampton. Then it's calmer for a time on Thursday evening, but Eunice rapidly deepening out in the Atlantic, bringing its strongest swathe of winds during the early hours of tonight across Wales, the southwest of England, and then spreading across much of the rest of the south of the UK through the day on Friday. Initially, a bout of wet weather arrives by midnight. That pushes north. It mixes with cold air to bring some significant and disruptive snow to northern England, central and southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, blizzards over the hills, drifting of snow as well. But the winds are really picking up by this stage. Dawn on Friday across the southern half of the UK. Widespread 60 to 70 mile-per-hour wind gusts from northern England southwards, and in some exposed spots 80 miles an hour, and peaking around the coasts of West Wales, the Bristol Channel, southwest England at 90, perhaps as much as 100 miles an hour. Dangerous wind speeds, dangerous conditions around coasts, and likely disruption in many places, as well as damage to structures. It stays cold in the north, with the snow leading to potential issues across especially the higher ground of northern England, central and southern Scotland, but it's milder further south, with some sunshine replacing the earlier rain by the afternoon.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before. It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
A very good morning. It's 10:27 and this is To The Point with me, Mercy Muroki, and Patrick Christys on GB News, live on your TV, radio and online.
Yes, indeed. Well, we just want to bring you a quick update, actually, about the on-the-run sex offender that we spoke about the last couple of days, Paul Robson. He's actually been arrested, apparently, in the Skegness area now, 4 days after absconding from an open prison near Boston in Lincolnshire. This is according to police. Now, Robson was reported missing from HMP North Sea Camp in Boston, Lincolnshire, on Sunday.
Yeah, well, he had already had a long history of violent sex attacks and was described by a sentencing judge as a menace to females. So that's something we were, of course, talking about earlier on in the week. Police had told the public not to approach the man if they saw him, but it's great news that he has now been arrested again, and I suspect they will not be letting him go back into the open prison.
No, not at all. And I think we did indeed have an email in about this. You know, the words open and prison shouldn't necessarily really be put together. But just moving away from that now, Boris Johnson is set to agree a £25 million security package with Australia to build the UK's defence pact with Canberra. So Number 10 has said that the investment is designed to strengthen resilience in cyberspace, state threats and maritime security.
Yes, well, the Prime Minister met with Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison yesterday evening as the government reinforces investment in the Commonwealth and the Indo-Pacific region in a foreign policy focus shift, while Caleb Bond is a columnist at the Herald Sun and the Adelaide Advertiser, and he joins us now. Good morning. So this investment, which is of £25 million, is intended to strengthen resilience in cyberspace, state threats and maritime security. £25 million sounds like a very small amount to achieve those aims.
Yeah, well, it translates to about 47 million Australian dollars when you convert it over. And yes, it is a small amount of money to invest, but I have to say it is a step in the right direction. I mean, obviously, we have recently signed up to AUKUS with the US as well, which is an indication that the allies are closer than they have ever been. But look, something is better than nothing. But $50 million in Australian dollars or £25 million in your money really isn't going to go a long way, as you say, to do much about particularly anything that's going on in the Indo-Pacific. I mean, you look at China's investment in Pacific Islands at the moment, they are spending billions of dollars in what they call their Belt and Road scheme, which is essentially lending money to these small islands all over the Pacific. And look, you'd have to be an idiot to think that one day China isn't going to come knocking and ask for something. And these are all the little islands that are around Australia. It poses a serious threat to us, and then by extension, the rest of the West. So it's nice to have the UK on board, but this is a small cog, I would have thought, in the entire system, because there is a lot more work to be done.
Well, the UK government says it's going to position itself as the European partner of choice in the Indo-Pacific region. Where do you think we are with that? Because it is about 6 months now since that AUKUS deal was signed.
Look, I think the UK is in a pretty good position right now, apart from some weird noises that came from the French, because obviously we had to get out of a deal that we'd done with the French here in Australia for some submarines in order to join the AUKUS deal. The UK is on pretty good footing. I don't think there's anyone else in Europe that we would rather be with. I mean, we obviously have a very long and great association with the UK for various reasons, but particularly when it comes to national security. And apart from the UK and the US, there's really no other nations we would want to be closer to when it comes to the fight against China. And particularly this week, the talk about China has been ramping up here in Australia after there was an editorial published in one of the state Chinese newspapers basically endorsing the Australian opposition when it comes to the federal election in May. I mean, China has come out and said that they have a preferred government in Australia. So it is really heating up here. So it's come at the right time. They're making the right noises. Let's just hope that behind the $50 million or £25 million, there is some actual action and hopefully a bit more money down the track.
Yes, indeed. Well, thank you so much for joining us this morning to explain all of that. Caleb Bond there, columnist at the Herald Sun and the Adelaide Advertiser from Australia.
Yes, indeed. Yes. OK, well, look, after the break, we'll be talking about mental health and how it's impacted us since the start of the pandemic. There's been some pretty devastating stats that have come out. But before that, let's have a quick look at this morning's news.
It's 10:33. I'm Rhiannon Jones in the GB newsroom. Thousands of homes in parts of northern England and Scotland have woken up without power after Storm Dudley battered the UK last night. Winds of more than 80 miles per hour caused power cuts and travel disruption. All that ahead of a second storm, Storm Eunice, which is set to move in later today. In the last half hour, it's been claimed that a Ukrainian village has been shelled with heavy weapons from the occupied territory of Donbass. The Ukrainian Foreign Minister, Dmytro Kuleba, says civilian infrastructure has been damaged. He's also calling on allies to condemn the violation of the Minsk agreements by Russia in an already tense security situation. It comes as the US accused Russia of adding a further 7,000 troops near the Ukrainian border. Local media are reporting that the victim of a shark attack in Australia was a British national. Friends say 35-year-old Simon Nellist was an experienced diver living in Sydney. It marks the first fatal shark attack in the city in nearly 60 years. Police have closed local beaches as they continue to search for the predator. Sex offender Paul Robson has been arrested in the Skegness area 4 days after going on the run from an open prison near Boston. Lincolnshire police say the 56-year-old is now in custody. Almost 15 million people were left waiting for post over the Christmas period. That's according to Citizens' Advice. 2.5 million people missed important documents, health appointments, or were unable to pay a fine and bills. More than half of those surveyed went a week without their post. 18 charities supporting more than 500,000 people with weakened immune systems are calling for COVID testing to remain free of charge. There's speculation the government's Living with COVID strategy for England, published on Monday, will scrap the measure. TV online and DAB Plus radio, this is GB News. We'll have a full update for you at the top of the hour. It's back to Patrick and Mercy with To The Point in just a moment.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel.
Right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before. It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Good morning, it's 10:37 and this is To The Point with Patrick Christys and me, Mercy Muroki, on GB News, live on your TV and radio this morning.
Yes, well, 43% of people say their mental health has got worse since the start of the pandemic. Research showed that nearly 1 in 3 UK employees took leave last year to address their mental health, with employees in the south taking off more days amid higher job uncertainty.
Yes, well, this time off is estimated to have cost businesses £12.7 billion, with workers taking 3 or 4 days off on average. But wellbeing experts say this cost is worth it, as in the grand scheme, these days off improve morale and reduced burnout. Here to tell us more on this is wellbeing expert Angie McGrandles. Good morning, thank you for joining us. There's, I suppose, good news and bad news in this. The bad news is is that it does seem that the mental health of the nation has got worse over the pandemic. But I do notice that in this research, it says the discussion around mental health and well-being is improving.
Good morning. Yes, I mean, it's hardly surprising that there's been a deterioration in people's mental health. The pandemic has brought about a lot of change and uncertainty. Our routine and our life as we knew it was turned upside down 2 years ago. And as we know, positive routine is good for our mental health. And having to constantly adapt to change and the uncertainty will have taken its toll on people's mental health and made us more prone to negative thinking, anxiousness and stress. But like you said, I definitely think the pandemic has highlighted the need for us to address mental health.
To addressing mental health, do you have any faith in our National Health Service at the moment? Because I know people who have accessed mental health treatment privately through private healthcare insurance and things, and their experience compared to people who've accessed it through the NHS, there's no comparison whatsoever.
No, and I think there's a bit of a postcode lottery, unfortunately, when it comes to what we can access across the NHS. There definitely needs to be more investment across the NHS in mental health. And like you said, I think, you know, people who have tried to access NHS treatments have sometimes not received the care as quickly and as they should have.
Another thing in this research, it says that there's a north-south divide, actually. I think people in the north, in the south, are more concerned about losing their job. They say they're reporting poorer mental health. I just wondered why you think that might be, because we are often told, you know, people, the north is the more deprived part of the country, and you'd expect perhaps people to have more mental health problems there. I mean, is this the case, or are we just seeing a reversal of the trends?
I think what we're probably seeing is people who are in employment will still have financial worries around job security. You know, we had obviously the furlough period right at the beginning of the pandemic. So a lot of people will have been worried about whether or not their jobs are at risk. And there's been a massive increase in burnout as well, employee burnout. So there was a study last year that showed that 40% of UK workers were on the brink of burnout, and they said that was due to work stress. So I think people who are in employment are still at risk of poor mental health because they are working longer hours, boundaries are blurred when you're working from home or you're hybrid working. And like I said, this leads to a risk of burnout and adds more stress to workers as well.
Yeah, obviously, this is focusing on employees and it's focusing on adults, but I'm quite keen to get your take on what's going on regarding our children as well. They've had a very, very, very tough time of it, haven't they? They've been, you know, you're in school one day, they're out the next, they've got to put masks on, they can't hug people, etc., etc., etc. Has their mental health really suffered, do you think?
Yes, again, there's been lots of studies out in the past year saying that the mental health of young people has deteriorated. And again, that's not surprising because, like you just said, the whole change and uncertainty, children love routine. And when their routine is disrupted, it's going to make them feel anxious. I know a lot of schools have started to implement mental health programs, but I do think there needs to be a big investment in schools. And I think if we make a big investment in children, then our future generation will be better equipped to deal with stress, pressure, and poor mental health.
Angie McGrandles, thank you so much for coming on our show and discussing this really important research, which I'm sure many people will relate to. Angie McGrandles there, wellbeing expert.
I love that name as well.
Yeah.
Angie McGrandles.
Very unique.
Yes, indeed. Right, OK. Well, a mother is taking the Environment Agency to the European Court of Human Rights in a row over a landfill site near her home in Newcastle-under-Lyme in Staffordshire. So Becky Curry believes toxic fumes from the site are limiting her 6-year-old son's life.
Yes, well, she's one of hundreds of residents in the town who have been protesting over the smell and fumes from Wally's Quarry Limited, which they believe is affecting their physical and mental health. While GB News' Midland reporter Balvinder Sidhu reports.
Struggling to sleep is 6-year-old Matthew Richards. He cries out in the night, "Please call the smell, I can't breathe." His mum Becky says he's talking about the fumes from a landfill site near their home in Newcastle under Lyme. She says the smell has made their lives unbearable.
Absolutely horrendous. That's what we're going through, and it isn't just me. You know, there's thousands of parents worried about the kids.
Matthew had chronic lung disease as a baby, and his mum believes the landfill site has made his condition worse.
He was 6 on Friday. What's he going to be like when he's 16? You know, and professionals have said his life is going to be made shorter. They're forcing me out now. I've got to go. Got to take Matthew away from it now. Got no choice, really.
Becky is now taking the Environment Agency to the European Court of Human Rights.
I am very, very angry with the EA. Really am. Because they're supposed to be protecting us.
90 children from this primary school have written to their local MP and the Environment Agency about the smell.
It smells like rotten eggs. And then when you're learning and you're concentrating, all you can smell is the smell surrounding you. And it kind of puts you off your work. It makes me feel a bit sad because we're the only ones really experiencing this.
It smells like everyone else has said. It smells quite rotten eggy, and it also smells of sulphur.
It took a long time for the smell to improve. It has done recently, but it is something that still happens on a fortnightly basis, and it's impacting their education.
Hundreds of people have complained and protested about the smell, many reporting that it causes nosebleeds, headaches and itchy eyes. The local GP is calling it a public health crisis.
The Environment Agency splits hairs because it says, oh, nobody's actually dying of it. I think in Matthew's case, the consultants have said it's absolutely affecting his anticipated life. But for it, what it is really affecting the quality of life of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. Yes, it isn't completely, it may not actually kill them today, tonight, but it's really seriously affecting their quality of life.
In a statement, the Environment Agency says it wants Wally's Quarry to make changes to the way it runs, and it's working with the authorities to bring emissions of hydrogen sulfide under control. It's also investigating alleged illegal waste activities at sites run by Wally's Quarry pose an unacceptable risk to health, and the odour is typical of a non-hazardous waste landfill site. And that monitoring by the Environment Agency shows emission levels continue to reduce. But Becky says that's not good enough, and the fight for fresh air will continue for as long as it takes. Balvinder Sidhu for GB News.
That's
very
horrendous.
depressing, isn't it?
It's horrendous for those people, isn't it? You know, to be downwind from something like that and to live in that. Yeah. And you won't sell your house either, isn't it? People go, well, why don't you move away? Well, who's buying it?
That's the other thing, isn't it? Because you're pretty much stuck there.
Absolutely.
Life. But let's move on to a happier note, I think, after that depressing story. We'd like to bring you some light relief, because one of today's big news stories on The Point is that it's Random Acts of Kindness a day, and GB News presenter Rosie Wright has been out and about across the capital for us.
Now, on Random Acts of Kindness Day, I've spent the morning visiting different centres in London that are full of people doing that on a very daily basis. This is Battersea Dogs and Cats Home. Let me just introduce you to Parker here. Parker was found in a car park in a cardboard box, and is one of 70 cats waiting and searching for a home. We can find out a little bit more now. Joining us here is Steve, the man in charge, who can tell us about the process of how these animals can find a home, be adopted by members of the public. Steve, a very good morning to you. Just talk us through what happens here.
So Battersea takes in dogs and cats that are in the most need of help from members of the public, whether they're stray, perhaps abandoned, or as Parker is, found in cardboard boxes. We take them in, we make sure that they're medically and behaviourally okay, and then we find wonderful new homes for them.
So we've had this morning, a couple have come in and they've been introduced to their cat, they're going to have the whole process to take them home. Are you seeing enough people who want to adopt pets for the number of animals that you have?
Yeah, we've been very lucky. Throughout the last 2 years, the number of people that have wanted to take home pets from Battersea has skyrocketed, which is absolutely fantastic. It does mean that people are waiting a little bit longer for us to get in touch with them so that we can find the perfect animal for them to take back to their home.
I mean, that's a brilliant problem to have. There was a lot of conversation and chatter that over lockdown, lots of people suddenly got a pet. Maybe they couldn't look after it in the way they thought they could. Have you actually seen that as a problem?
We are seeing issues where certain animals, people have struggled to socialise their animals when they first get them, particularly with perhaps other dogs or new people. But we haven't seen an influx of animals that are coming back, so people are making a lot of effort to train their animals in the home, which is absolutely fantastic news. And Battersea has a lot of resources to be able to help people, be that on website, YouTube channel, or our behavioural advice line.
Okay, not only that, there's other ways that you can give your time as well. Look at this, when we came in through the reception. Please take some free knitted mice. And inside, there was a real hot pink one, which I really liked. Look at that. So people are knitting these at home for people to take home with them as well and give them to the cats. So there are lots of different ways. If people thought, actually, I want to get involved, but it's going to be too much for me to actually adopt a pet, what would you recommend?
There are loads of ways you can support Battersea or any of your local rescue centres. Obviously, we have nearly 1,000 volunteers across our 3 centres, which are absolutely vital to helping us socialise and care for the animals that we have. There are lots of details on our website about other ways that you can support us, which could include fundraising, events, or just donating money.
Steve, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure to be here. The instruction is to be quiet. So from here at Battersea Dogs and Cats Home, that's over and out.
Wow, well, there you go. Our cat was very cute.
I know, cats are very cute. Do you know what I don't like when it comes to so-called random acts of kindness? When people sort of film themselves on their YouTube channels doing so-called random acts of kindness. It's not random, is it? You're doing it to get a few likes.
Yeah, like with someone...
And virtue. It's a bit of virtue.
It is virtue signaling, but there was one guy I saw once that sums this up brilliantly, right? He was like... This guy was homeless, obviously, sitting outside a corner shop somewhere. So this bloke comes up to him and he's like, all right, mate, I tell you what, I'll take you to the barber so you get your hair done. This guy's like, all right, okay, so goes to the barber's, gets his hair done, then like gives him a bit of shopping, and then lets him sit in his Range Rover for a bit and stuff like that. And it was like, I'm not sure this guy wanted that. Just give him a tenner and do one, you know?
Yeah, that's odd. But before a break, let's just quickly run you through some of the other stories you may have missed. A woman in the US has been cured of HIV and cancer after receiving rare but dangerous stem cell treatment. The woman, dubbed the New York patient, received the treatment 4 years ago following a HIV diagnosis in 2013 and leukemia in 2017.
Well, treatment is so risky, it's deemed unethical to use on people who do not have a late-stage cancer diagnosis. To carry it out, doctors first have to find a donor with a rare mutation that makes them resistant to the HIV virus.
Yeah.
It's fascinating stuff, isn't it?
It is.
This kind of stuff is probably the future, one would have thought. Obviously, there's issues with it.
I think she was being treated for leukemia, so she wasn't primarily being treated for HIV, and then it was, I think, by umbilical cord blood, and she's been free of the virus for 14 months. But, I mean, because it seems like it is too dangerous at this point due to most people with HIVs. But any step forward, I would say, in curing any virus is a good step forward.
No, I absolutely. I think this is going to be one of the big things going forward, really, the stem cell treatment. Anyway, Scotland is considering women-only train carriages to address safety concerns on public transport. So Jenny Gilruth, Scotland's new Transport Minister, recently kicked off the debate on safety in public transport following her statement on the future of Scottish Railways, which will be nationalised in April.
Well, she described it as a systematic problem that women feel insecure in public transport, quote, because of the behaviour of men.
What do you make of this?
I think
there are safety issues, you know.
I'm not sure it's a good idea. I really like staying away from segregation.
Yeah,
I think history has proven segregation is probably not the solution to anything. Look, if women want to feel safe, and a train carriage will make them feel safer, okay, I understand. But I personally, if I was a transport minister, that's not the policy I'd be going ahead. You're not really tackling the issue. If the issue you're trying to tackle is men, the percentage of men who go out there and do commit violent crimes against women, shoving women in a different carriage on a train, I just don't think is that great of an idea.
Well, no, I agree. And also, presumably, a man could get in there anyway. But anyway, I think maybe putting security on the train might be a better option as well. But anyway, I suppose we're not the ones in charge, are we, in Scotland at the moment? But, but there we go, yes.
Let's go to a couple of your views. We spoke about the Queen at the top of the hour, about 10 o'clock. Teresa's got in touch and she says, we forget it's less than a year since the Queen lost her husband. She's still getting used to that and she never really had time to grieve. She's also had the Andrew, the Harry thing and now Charles. She's very frail and we are still going to wheel her out for another Jubilee. It's then plastered all over the media where the worry is it can't be hidden from her. What a way to repay her for all these years of service. And that's really interesting then, because and in a way that's why I do admire her so much and I am in awe of her, because she has an insane amount of things going on around her, whether it's things to do with her family, all these public appearances she has to do, these professional meetings with ambassadors, with the army, with prime ministers. You know, she's 96 and the fact she's still out and about and she's smiling and she's going about her business, I think it's so heartwarming.
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely. And I think, Prince Harry needs to hang his head in shame, doesn't he, really? The artist formerly known as Prince Harry, anyway. This is an absolute outrage, what he's doing here now, dragging his family through the mud yet again, the anguish, the turmoil of it all. And I just think it's completely and utterly shameful and disgraceful. And also, on top of it as well, he's not exactly squeaky clean himself. I think he feels as though he's all of a sudden come into this higher echelon of enlightenment where he's like, I now see, I see the world differently, and if you all saw it like me. Actually, most people were intelligent enough to see the world that way anyway, Harry, and actually figure out whether or not they wanted to do those kind of things.
Yes, well, one more view. Mark has said, what would stop me using a carriage for women only if I was self-identifying as a woman?
Yeah.
And there goes the whole theory
which
busted.
In Scotland, of course, they are now really, really, really pushing. So actually, yes, that would be the next crisis, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and it's funny because women would probably then get criminalised for misgendering somebody in a woman-only carriage, and then the man who's transitioned into a woman wouldn't get criminalised.
And it emerges that women are indeed the problem, actually. It's not the men,
Yeah, the theory all goes bust, I suppose. But keep all your thoughts coming into us on email, gbviews@gbnews.uk. We will be back for another hour with more of today's top stories and plenty of your views after the break. But first, let's give you the weather.
I'm Alex Deakin with your latest weather update from the Met Office. As we've been hearing on the news, Storm Eunice is approaching the UK. It's going to hit the country during Friday with potentially damaging gusts of wind and some snowfall. Storm Dudley's out of the way, but here comes Eunice brewing up down to the southwest, really intensifying over the next 12 hours before moving across the country during Friday. The strongest winds across England and Wales, but some snow likely across Scotland and Northern Ireland. A bit of snow still in the showers across northern Scotland today, but certainly for much of the eastern side of the UK today is just a bright and breezy day. The winds continuing to ease down after Storm Dudley. Quite a bit of cloud for Wales, Northern Ireland, the odd shower, quite mild in the south, 11 degrees on the south coast, across Scotland, Northern England, 6 or 7 Celsius. But the action really starts tonight as we start to see this storm system moving in. Initially heavy rain coming into Wales, southwest England. Heavy rain for a time for Northern Ireland, but quickly turning to snow. So that is another cause for concern tonight as that snow moves in, and then we'll see some snow over the far north of England and southern Scotland. Temperatures holding up across the south, frost likely in northern Scotland before the winds pick up. And the winds are really the big issue with Storm Eunice as it moves in during Friday. The isobars pinching together there. So it's South Wales, southwest England that bears the brunt on Friday morning, but then strong winds for northwest England moving down across the Midlands into eastern England later on Friday. An amber warning in place covering most of England and Wales, a yellow warning for the snow further north. Those gusts of wind on the south, 80, 90, possibly around some coasts, maybe 100 miles an hour. Dangerous waves likely, certainly to cause some issues with power and the transport network. The snow will continue on and off for much of the day across central and particularly eastern Scotland, so that could really build up through the day. That is another area for concern. Very windy as these showers move through. There'll be some afternoon sunshine and those winds slowly easing in the southwest later on. But serious weather conditions on the way. Keep up to date with the weather warnings on the Met Office website.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate.
From all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel.
Right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before. It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Good morning, this is To The Point on GB News with me, Mercy Muroki, and Patrick Christys on your TV and radio. We're here all the way through until midday for another hour with today's top stories, lots of discussion and our opinions as well.
Well, make sure that you get in touch with your views. As usual, GBviews, gbnews.uk. We'll be getting to those throughout the show. But first, it's time for your latest headlines.
Good morning, it's 11 o'clock. I'm Rhiannon Jones in the GB newsroom. Thousands of homes in parts of northern England and Scotland have woken up without power after Storm Dudley battered the UK last night. Winds of more than 80 miles per hour caused power cuts and travel disruption. All that ahead of a second storm, Storm Eunice, which is set to move in later today. GB News' Bethany Elsey reports.
Another storm and another morning where thousands of people wake up without power. Northern Power Grids say 19,000 people have experienced power cuts as Storm Dudley battered the nation. 1,000 across the north of England have yet to be connected. And Electricity North West say 1,700 homes in Wigan and thousands more in Lancashire are without power. But it isn't just chaos at home. Travel across the country has also been impacted. ScotRail cancelled all its services from yesterday afternoon, and it could be midday before trains start to run again. And for services that did run, it was trouble. In North Ayrshire, fallen trees severely damaged overhead structures and blocked lines. And in Scotland and Wales, an unexpected visitor, a number of trampolines were blown onto the tracks and under trains. Yellow weather warnings remain in place for Scotland, Northern England and Northern Ireland, and 42 flood alerts have been issued across the country, mostly around Yorkshire, the Welsh borders and the Midlands. And there's a new storm on the way, bringing what the Met Office say is a danger to life. Amber warnings have been issued across most of England ahead of the arrival of Storm Eunice tonight. Bethany Elsey, GB News.
A sex offender who sparked a major manhunt after escaping from an open prison in Lincolnshire has been arrested. Paul Robson had been on the run since Sunday after fleeing from the prison near Boston. He'd been described as a particular danger to women and young children. Lincolnshire police say the 56-year-old is now in custody after he was arrested in the Skegness area earlier this morning. It's been claimed that a Ukrainian village has been shelled with heavy weapons by Russian-backed separatists from the occupied territory of Donbass. The Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba says a civilian infrastructure has been damaged. The separatists have accused Ukrainian government forces of opening fire on their territory 4 times in the past 24 hours. It comes as Western countries have warned an attack by Russia could happen imminently, although it's not clear if this is an escalation. The Defence Secretary Ben Wallace says NATO's principle of welcoming new members into the organisation is absolutely clear.
Fundamentally, we remain an open-door organisation. I've made it very clear to the Kremlin that, countries choose NATO. NATO doesn't go around choosing the countries. It is not the case, as President Putin often asserts, that somehow NATO is a sort of country of its own going around looking for countries to join. We have the open-door policy, and then 30 members make that decision.
Almost 15 million people were left waiting for post over the Christmas period. That's according to Citizens Advice. The research shows that 2.5 million people missed important documents, health appointments, or were unable to pay a fine or bills. More than half of those surveyed went a week without their post. A group of charities supporting people with a weakened immune system are calling for COVID testing to remain free of charge. 18 health charities warn that coronavirus still poses a serious risk to some people. They fear that abandoning the measures risks making those with a weakened immune system second-class citizens. It's thought the government's Living with COVID strategy for England, set to be published on Monday, could signal an end to free PCR and lateral flow tests. And the amount of Scottish salmon bought in the UK last year increased by more than 4.5 tonnes, a new report has found. Salmon Scotland shows 63,000 tonnes of the fish were sold in the UK last year. That's a rise of 7.8%. Exports are back at pre-pandemic and pre-Brexit levels. Salmon remains our biggest food export, followed by bread, chocolate and cheese. This is GB News. We'll bring you more as and when it happens. Now it's back to Mercy and Patrick with To The Point.
Good morning, this is To The Point on GB News with me, Mercy Muroki, and Patrick Christys on your TV, radio and online. Here's what's coming up for the final hour.
Tensions between Ukraine and Russia continue to intensify as the Ukrainian foreign minister claims that a village in the country has been heavily shelled. Mark White, our home and security editor, will be with us in the studio to talk us through all of these developments.
Yes, and the Met Office has issued an amber danger to life warning after Storm Dudley disrupted transport and left thousands without power. The UK is now bracing for Storm Eunice, which is expected to blast the UK with blizzards and 100-mile-an-hour gales. We'll give you the latest updates on which areas are expected to be worst hit.
Yes, indeed. And apparently, Cudder's Saturday night curry get harder to find. Well, many restaurants are worried about business as they face a rise in fuel and ingredient prices worth thousands of pounds. So we'll be with one of the founders of the British Curry Awards a little later on in the show to discuss the problems the industry is facing.
Yes, that's all coming up and much more as well in the final hour. But get in touch with your views. That's the most important part. GB Views at gbnews.uk, and we'll get to as many as we can. But first, Patrick's giving his views on political bias in schools.
Political bias in schools has been a problem for far too long. Children are being indoctrinated by a gabble of highly unionised trots who, despite claiming to be overworked and underpaid, somehow manage to find the time to deviate from the syllabus to fill children's heads with a lefty ideology. Nadeem Zahawi, the Education Secretary, is issuing guidance to teachers and schools in a bid to protect children from the rampant political bias in our education system. There have been some ridiculous examples of teachers forcing their political views onto children, including a primary school in Nottingham where kids were urged to write a letter to their local MP to call for Boris Johnson to resign over Partygate. At that age, children should be thinking about their own parties, not calling for the head of state to be forced out of office. Thousands of teachers ran classes asking kids, Winston Churchill, hero or war criminal? Hero. That was easy. Next question. They appear to be ignoring the fact that it wasn't for Winston Churchill, the children would be learning about the Third Reich. And there wouldn't be any of this diversity as well that people care so deeply about. When the Black Lives Matter group came to the fore, Many teachers saw that as an opportunity to impose their views on race and unconscious bias upon their children. There were pictures of children taking the knee, for example. The fact is, the BLM movement published a manifesto. And in that manifesto, it basically contains a lot of Marxist ideology. Things like the radical redistribution of wealth and actually the breakdown of the nuclear family. It also pushes critical race theory. It helps foster the idea that white people are all inherently frothing racists who should apologise for the actions that their ancestors probably didn't even have any part in. We've got the trans lobby doing its best to tell kids they're born into the wrong body, and teachers have jumped on board with this too, haven't they? Some schools have stopped using gendered language, such as miss and sir. There is a primary school in Lancashire that even went totally vegetarian. They didn't bother to tell the parents first, by the way, because the headmistress wanted to teach the children about climate change and the fact that the world is going to end. Instead of becoming angry at pupils, teachers at this school as well are encouraged to say, get this, that a child has emptied their resilience bucket before sending them to the nurture room if their behaviour gets out of control. To be honest with you, this whole thing's emptying my resilience bucket. If teachers want to be political activists, they should go into politics and get out of the classroom. Let kids be kids. Is it any wonder there's a mental health crisis amongst children? The world is a confusing place enough as it stands already for children. They've been bombarded by draconian laws to protect them from a virus that basically posed no threat to their health whatsoever. The last thing they need now is Sandra from the geography department telling them that they're gender-confused racists who should want to overthrow capitalism. It just makes me very angry, really. I mean, the amount of bias that we have in schools at the moment. And then where does it end for that? Because it ends, for me anyway, with like what happened in Pimlico, where there was like the burning of a Union Jack outside of school, you know?
Yeah, I think I was with Nana when we discussed that, because I think it was that day or a couple of days later that the Education Secretary was publishing this guidance. It is only guidance, I suppose, and I'm sure there'll be lots of loopholes for teachers to get through. But I think the spirit of the guidance is completely right, because yes, teachers are human. They're allowed to have their own views, and I'm sure the vast majority of teachers have nothing but good intentions because they don't get into it for the money, let's be honest.
I think you can earn a fabulous living teaching, especially down south.
In some schools, but the vast majority of teachers, they're not earning enough for what they're getting paid. That's my view. I think the quality of our national curriculum is very poor in the first place, so I don't think we should be prioritising sort of teaching biased material at all. We should be prioritising things like maths and English, which are already really poorly taught. So I think the spirit of the guidance is right. Impartiality has to be put above everything else, surely, when you're teaching contentious issues.
And this is what, I agree with you on that. If we were scoring very, very highly in the in National League tables for education, for example, if we had people, who were flying high academically when it came to maths, sciences, etc., 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 but we're not really. We seem to be kind of ever plunging our way down the league tables. And, when you're behind countries such as Hungary, no offence to Hungary, of course, but we are supposed to be the fifth biggest economy in the world, is it? A proper, historic nation. And, instead we're just teaching kids how to kneel down.
Well, let us know what you think. gbviews@gbnews.uk, and we'll get to those views a bit later on. But now back to the latest developments in the Ukraine. The country's foreign minister has tweeted to say this: Ukrainian Stanistya Luhanska village was shelled with heavy weapons from the occupied territory of the Donbass. Civilian infrastructure damaged. We call on all parties to swiftly condemn this severe violation of Minsk agreements by Russia amid an already tense security situation.
Yeah, joining us now is our Home and Security Editor, Mark White. Mark, just give us the very latest, please.
Well, these reports coming out, of course, from the Ukrainian government and the Ukrainian military about the shelling of this village in the Luhansk by rebels in the occupied Donbass region, Russian-backed rebels. There has been a low-level insurgency taking place in that part of eastern Ukraine for years now. I say a low-level insurgency, 13,500 Ukrainians have died in recent years. The real concern has always been that as that insurgency continues, that factions would use it as an opportunity to step up their engagements with a view to escalating the situation and perhaps This is according to Western allies, giving the Russian government a pretext for moving in to, quote, stabilise the region. So that is the concern as we watch this. It's not unusual for there to be shelling and firing across these disputed border territories. But at this time, with 150,000 Russian ground troops there in the border region, it is a very, very tense time.
Sergei Lavrov has come out and said, on numerous occasions, this kind of stuff, right? We are being attacked as well, or et cetera, et cetera. Do you think we're actually witnessing now the potential for the real start of it all now? Because Putin has got these kind of separatist forces, hasn't he? So he can almost wash his hands of them shelling something. He can say, well, I didn't give them the order, and then this is the escalation point, isn't it?
Well, that is the concern, that Russia to the world presents any movement into these parts of eastern Ukraine. And there has been certainly some analysts who are predicting that rather than a whole-scale invasion of Ukraine itself, that what you might be looking at is something similar to what happened in Crimea in 2014. So these rebel disputed areas, the Russians moving in to actually take control of those areas, to annex those areas as well, or at least put them under more autonomous control. We don't know exactly, of course, what is in the mind of the Russian leader at this point. The West is saying don't believe Russian assertions that they are currently withdrawing from the border region because they haven't seen that. Now, in response to that, I mean, we've got a real toing and froing, a war of words, if you like, from both sides. Russia saying, look, it took us weeks, months to put these troops in. It will take weeks and months to withdraw them. It's not going to happen overnight. So they are disputing the disputes of the Western government. But hey, this is what happens in the propaganda war. And this is the thing, they talk about military conflict, but there's also a war within the grey zone. You were mentioning in the last hour about cyber attacks and propaganda. It all really features in to the geopolitical thinking in terms of what war is these days.
And many people will be at home saying, look, here domestically we're facing a cost of living crisis. We have so many problems facing this country. How does something going on in the Far East, in Eastern Europe, how does it affect me in Britain? What would you say to that?
Well, people should be worried because the real effect of that is already being felt in fuel prices, which have escalated in recent weeks because in no small part of the uncertainty and the tensions that are building up on the Ukrainian-Russian border. And if there was to be any kind of significant conflict, then fuel prices would rise even further because although we in this country don't rely on Russia for much in the way of our gas supplies, in European countries like Germany, they absolutely do. And you could think, well, more fool them. But if the gas supply is suddenly cut off, there is a shortage of supplies coming from Russia into these European countries that rely on it, then they're all going to be chasing after the same pool of fuel that we do in this country, and that all elevates the fuel prices. And in addition to just the fuel, there is a lot in the way of food supplies that come from that part of the world as well. Russia, the biggest grain exporter in Ukraine, it's corn. Ukraine has been referred to over the years as Europe's breadbasket. It is a massively fertile region which has huge agriculture and products that go more widely into Europe. So we'll all feel the effects of it. And then, of course, you have the military effects, which families of servicemen and women at the moment are feeling. If you have friends and family who are in the RAF, the Royal Navy, or the Army, then the chances are some of them have been deployed to that region. Again, today, the Defence Secretary announcing that we are doubling the number of troops that are going to Estonia, this coming on the back of a doubling of the number of troops that have been sent to Poland, all NATO allies, with a view to enhancing NATO's presence there to help reassure these understandably very anxious neighbours to Ukraine.
Absolutely. Mark, thank you very, very much for all the latest on that. Mark White there, of course, our home and security editor, just bringing you really up to date with what's been going on in Ukraine. Again, if you are just joining us, reports of a village being shelled from the Donbass region, which, of course, there are a lot of separatists over there as well.
Yes, well, after the break, we'll be finding out how Storm Dudley here at home has been affecting people in the northeast of England as the country prepares for Storm Eunice. But first, the weather.
I'm Alex Deakin with your latest weather update from the Met Office. As we've been hearing on the news, Storm Eunice is approaching the UK. It's going to hit the country during Friday with potentially damaging gusts of wind and some snowfall. Storm Dudley's out of the way, but here comes Eunice, brewing up down to the southwest, really intensifying over the next 12 hours before moving across the country during Friday. The strongest winds across England and Wales, but some snow likely across Scotland and Northern Ireland. A bit of snow still in the showers across northern Scotland today, but certainly for much of the eastern side of the UK today is just a bright and breezy day. The wind's continuing to ease down after Storm Dudley. Quite a bit of cloud for Wales, Northern Ireland, the odd shower, quite mild in the south, 11 degrees on the south coast, across Scotland, Northern England, 6 or 7 Celsius. But the action really starts tonight as we start to see this storm system moving in. Initially heavy rain coming into Wales, southwest England. Heavy rain for a time for Northern Ireland, but quickly turning to snow. So that is another cause for concern tonight as that snow moves in, and then we'll see some snow over the far north of England and southern Scotland. Temperatures holding up across the south, frost likely in northern Scotland before the winds pick up. And the winds are really the big issue with Storm Eunice as it moves in during Friday. The isobars pinching together there. So it's South Wales, southwest England that bears the brunt on Friday morning, but then strong winds for northwest England moving down across the Midlands into eastern England later on Friday. An amber warning in place covering most of England and Wales, a yellow warning for the snow further north. Those gusts of wind on the south, 80, 90, possibly around some coast, maybe 100 miles an hour. Dangerous waves likely certainly to cause some issues with power and the transport network. The snow will continue on and off for much of the day across central and particularly eastern Scotland, so that could really build up through the day. That is another area for concern. Very windy as these showers move through. There'll be some afternoon sunshine and those winds slowly easing in the southwest later on. But serious weather conditions on the way. Keep up to date with the weather warnings on the Met Office website.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate.
From all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel.
Right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood, and every weekday we bring you The Briefing live from 9:30 a.m. The stories, analysis and live debate that you need to hear.
Quite right, Tom, of course.
Was this something that had been considered at all?
Difficult to answer.
Gas-guzzling helicopters circling. Noise is being made here.
Joe Biden walking out Thank you very much for joining us. Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, Monday to Friday, 9:30 a.m. on GB News.
Join me, Gloria De Piero, Monday to Thursday at noon for The Briefing. We go to the parts of Parliament that you won't see elsewhere. Plus, there's exclusive interviews with MPs from all parties.
But quite often, they paper over the real truth. Why does a working class lad like you join the Tories?
That's a good question. Don't miss it. Monday to Thursdays at noon on GB News.
Yes, hello. Well, it is 11:23 this morning. This is To The Point with me, Patrick Christys, and Mercy Muroki on GB News. And we're live on your TV, your radio and online.
Yes, well, the Met Office has issued an amber danger to life warning as thousands of homes in the northeast of England were without power and train services were cut off after Storm Dudley hit last night.
Yes, indeed. Well, obviously days of extreme weather still lie ahead, apparently, with the second storm, Storm Eunice, which doesn't sound that threatening, but probably is, set to hit southern Scotland and other parts of England. Well, our reporter Rachel Sweeney has spoken to people facing up to this storm, while also, of course, recovering from the devastating weather back in November.
Storm Eunice will be the fifth storm to rip through the northeast of England in 4 months. Winds of up to 90 miles per hour destroyed parts of the region before Christmas, with clean-up operations still going on in parts of Northumberland. Storm Eunice is predicted to cause more power cuts, more property damage and more travel disruption. With some parts of the northeast of England still recovering from the effects of Storm Arwen that hit the region back in November, some people have said that it's going to be very difficult to even contemplate another storm hitting the region and also the recovery effort that will follow.
Oh, it's been terrible, like frightening, because even like the trees in my garden, they were like fell over on my fence, and it's like you go to bed and you don't know what you're going to wake up to.
Not just people losing roof tiles, people not being able to get out of the house. My mother-in-law's coming up 92. She can't get out at all with the weather the way it's been. The litter from everybody's bins being blown over. I came down to the beach this morning and literally it was horrific.
I would definitely say anyone living coastal, especially old people that rely on public transport. A lot of the public transport's just been very hit and miss for people when it comes to getting to work or just even out the house.
The northeast people rally together and help each other, which is really good. But I definitely think we should probably have more support from the government.
I think for older people, going out of doors, feeling unsteady on the feet in strong winds and heavy rains, pretty scary, really.
Hundreds of thousands of homes have been without power during storms. Northern Power Grid has been heavily criticised for its response to Storm Arwen because some people were still relying on generators weeks after the storm hit. Storms Dudley and Eunice are hitting the northeast one after the other, and Northern Power Grid say they're expecting disruption. In a statement, they said, "We are closely tracking the weather and have ensured that our resources are in place to respond if the forecasted back-to-back storms impact our network." Our network control engineers have capability to restore power supplies remotely, switching electricity through alternative routes on our network wherever possible to get customers back on supply. In parallel, our frontline workforce will be deployed to carry out local switching and repairs to restore power as safely and quickly as the conditions allow. People across the region are reminded to only travel if necessary, avoid coastal areas during storms and to take extra care. Rachel Sweeney, GB News.
Well, let's now speak to Rachel Sweeney, who is down at Durham this morning. Good morning, Rachel. Just give us an update on how bad Storm Eunice is expected to get.
Well, we're looking ahead at Storm Eunice, but it really doesn't feel like Storm Dudley is over just yet. Apparently it is, according to the Met Office website. So far we've had 14,000 people without power in the northeast of England. Where I am now in Low Pittington in County Durham, this is a very typical village, and this is one of the villages that keeps getting hit over and over again with these power cuts, and the people here are bracing themselves for tomorrow. Storm Eunice, you're absolutely right. all they can do is wait, see what happens overnight and hope that they don't get affected as much as they have during the previous storms. Malik especially was difficult for people in this area. Another problem that we're having is just getting around, the travel disruption. So LNER have put out a statement saying that they're urging people not to travel at all between London, King's Cross, York and Leeds tomorrow. They're expecting significant disruption to their lines. Another problem up here we're having is that winds have damaged a wall and overhead power lines. That means the Tyne and Wear Metro is having significant problems again. People are being urged to only travel if necessary, but to check before they travel. As you can probably see, this wind is so strong, but the chill is absolutely biting. And we've just heard from the GBNews weather forecast there that we're expecting a lot of rain. Now with that there's got to be ice. It's going to be dangerous travel conditions. We have to just wait and see, but I'll be here throughout to keep you posted.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for braving the elements for us, Rachel, and make sure you take care. Right, we don't want you getting hypothermia or anything like that. Rachel Sweeney there, live in Durham, just reporting, of course, on the fact that Storm Eunice is about to hit. I want to know how they name storms.
Well, I'm going to tell you.
Yes, go. Good. We didn't even plan this, obviously.
I've never seen you so excited.
Yeah.
Watch it, you. Speak for yourself. This is how they name storms, or how they've started naming storms recently. The Met launched a campaign basically to ask for public submissions to names. They received more than 10,000 submissions for names from the UK public, and then the chosen names reflected the most popular choices, as well as some heartwarming reasons between the nomination. This includes a cat who comes in and acts like a storm. Storm Ruby. So people were submitting, pleasant and heartwarming stories about why they were putting those names forward.
That's nice.
And then when a storm arrives, forecasters pick the next name on the list.
Wow.
So there you go.
Well, that's interesting. It's strange names, though, Eunice and things like that. I don't know. They always seem quite odd.
Yes, indeed. Well, let's go to
Storm Patrick. Yeah.
You are a bit of a storm, aren't you, every morning? Right, so let's go to some of your views. That's what's most important. We spoke about gender-segregated trains, which is something the Transport Minister in Scotland is considering. Anthony here says, I'd be quite happy being segregated from Nicola Sturgeon.
Yes, it's an interesting one. There's a lot coming in now, actually, about the issue that I raised at the start of this hour, which was about left-wing bias in schools. It's disgusting, the way that these fanatics posing as teachers are brainwashing our kids. That's from Graham in Liverpool. Thank you very much, Graham. This was just the notion now, anyway, that Nadeem Zahawi has issued some guidance. It is only guidance to schools, just essentially to try to stop them I suppose indoctrinating children.
Yeah, impartiality guidance for when they're teaching particularly contentious issues, gender, race, etc. We spoke about mental health earlier. Some new figures came out about the amount of people whose mental health has decreased during the pandemic. So we'll be reading those out. But after the break, we'll be speaking about Northern Ireland troubles as US politicians have criticised the UK government. But before that, a look at this morning's news.
It's 11:31. I'm Rhiannon Jones in the GB newsroom. A red weather warning has been issued for South Wales and South East England ahead of Storm Eunice, which is due to hit the UK tonight. That's as thousands of homes in parts of northern England and Scotland are still without power after Storm Dudley hit the UK last night. Winds of more than 80 miles per hour caused power cuts and travel disruption. It's been claimed that a Ukrainian village has been shelled by Russian-backed separatists from the occupied territory of Donbass. The Ukrainian foreign minister says a civilian infrastructure has been damaged. The separatists have accused Ukrainian government forces of opening fire on their territory 4 times in the past 24 hours. It comes as Western countries have warned an attack by Russia could happen imminently, although it's not clear if this is an escalation. Local media are reporting that the victim of a shark attack in Australia was a British national. Friends say 35-year-old Simon Nellis was an experienced diver living in Sydney. It marks the first fatal shark attack in the city in nearly 60 years. Police have closed local beaches as they continue to search for the shark. Sex offender Paul Robson has been arrested in the Skegness area 4 days after going on the run from an open prison near Boston. Lincolnshire police say the 56-year-old is now in custody. Almost 15 million people were left waiting for post over the Christmas period. That's according to Citizens Advice. 2.5 million people missed important documents, health appointments, or were unable to pay a fine and bills. More than half of those surveyed went a week without their post. 18 charities supporting more than 500,000 people with a weakened immune system are calling for COVID testing to remain free of charge. There's speculation the government's Living with COVID strategy for England, published on Monday, will scrap the measure. TV online and DAB Plus radio, this is GB News. We'll have a full update for you at the top of the hour. It's back to Patrick and Mercy with To The Point in just a moment.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before. It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Yes, good morning, everyone. This is To The Point with me, Patrick Christys, and Mercy Muroki on GB News. We're live, of course, on your TV, or your radio, and online.
Yes, well, a number of US politicians have criticised the UK government at a congressional hearing on controversial proposals to deal with the legacy of the Troubles. They claimed the plans, which include an amnesty as part of a statute of limitations, raised questions about the government's credibility.
Well, committee co-chair Christopher Smith said there is nothing benign about the amnesty, when it is all about concealing facts that would hold people to account. This is a massive cover-up by the British government. Well, Kevin Meager is an author and commentator on British and Irish politics. Just run us through the significance of these comments, please.
Yeah, I mean, they are pretty significant. I mean, there's been a lot of criticism and condemnation for the proposals that the government has brought forward. It's not actually in a draft bill yet. But what they want to try and do is draw a line under any prosecutions that are related to the Northern Ireland Troubles. So pretty much everything from 1968 to 1998 and the Good Friday Agreement. The government would say, look, the potential for the past to drag down the present and damage the future, it remains very real. Therefore, that's their principal motivation, to stop the past interfering in the present. But the critics would say, look, actually, what you're trying to do is two things. One, you're trying to dodge the column and the kind of the killings committed by British soldiers during that period, issues around collusion between the British state and loyalist paramilitaries that we know has taken place. There's been a number of judge-led inquiries that have shown that. You're trying to kind of in effect brickwash the Northern Ireland Troubles, and that's your principal motivation. So the criticism has come far and wide, and it's interesting. It's the only issue I can think of that's really united all of the political parties in Northern Ireland. All of them have slightly different motivations. Unionists have different motivations than the nationalists, but they're all opposed to these proposals to have this amnesty, which would also mean that there are no investigations into the past. There are no more inquests as well. So it's a real curtailment of history, effectively. Now, Unionists would say, look, that lets the IRA off the hook. Nationalists and Republicans would say it lets loyalists and the British state off the hook. So everybody's got slightly different motivations, but the common denominator is all the parties, both sides of the divide in Northern Ireland, are opposed to the government's proposals, as are a lot of international voices, Amnesty International, and as we've seen this week as well, significant players in US politics.
Yeah, it was obviously, he goes out saying very much two different sides to this, isn't there, of course? But, excuse me, a lot of people in this country, certainly a lot of people I speak to in the military, felt very let down, because they said that whilst there were these kind of freedom letters, these letters of comfort, I think they're called, weren't they, for essentially convicted IRA terrorists, as it were, a lot of British troops, like Dennis Hutchins, for example, are getting dragged back for charges, years and years and years after the event. Is there not an imbalance there?
Well, I mean, you look at it this way. There's at least 300 killings carried out by British soldiers during the Troubles. There are only 4 soldiers that actually served jail time. And of those 4 soldiers, all had their sentences commuted, and all of them were allowed to rejoin their regiments, which was a bit of a slap in the face for the victims. So you could argue that's an imbalance there as well. I mean, what happened during the Troubles, of course, is that both Republicans, IRA, INLA groups, and also loyalist groups, UDA, UVF. I mean, some of these guys serve very serious jail time, and that there's an imbalance there that they would say, look, we've kind of paid for our crimes, we've done the serious jail time, but that hasn't happened on the other side. But that's only one dimension of this. Really, when you talk to a lot of the victims, and they're at the centre of all of this, what victims want is truth. They want some closure from all of this, but they want the truth. The truth is very important. It's not really just about retribution and jailing ex-squaddies and all the rest of it. What they want is truth. They want accountability. And that was the title, actually, of this session in the US Congress the other day, about accountability. So there's a way forward here where if we were to have a proper, meaningful truth and reconciliation process, where everything that was done was put out there on the table, and we could bring this perhaps to a close. But unfortunately, the British government just doesn't want to do that. It wants to cover up, effectively, some of the terrible things that went on, particularly in the 1970s and 1980s, which frankly wouldn't have disgraced a South American hunter. And that's at the nub of all this. You would get Republicans and you would get loyalists to sit around the table and give evidence about the things that they did. You won't get the British state to do it, and that's the blocker on all this.
And what do you think the likelihood of all of that happening, given the Northern Irish Parliament has been fraught with lots of problems, and there's been lots of distractions, haven't there, over the last few years, what with Brexit and the Northern Ireland Protocol? I mean, do they even have the capacity to actually properly and thoroughly deal with this issue?
Well, Brandon Lewis has been at pains to kind of point out that he'd like to get as much consensus as possible before actually pushing this further forwards, and that that just isn't happening at the moment. And I suspect with one thing and another, this issue is going to get kicked into the long grass, because there are so many other things that are going on at the moment, as you allude to, with the protocol and the elections that take place in a few weeks' time as well, and then the potential political crisis that may come out of that if Sinn Féin emerges as the largest party, which opinion polls at the moment suggest that it will. So there's a lot of stuff mounting up in the in tray, but the issue about legacy is just permanently there. Interrogating the past and bringing it to some sort of closure and some conclusion is very, very difficult and very, very painful. But the easiest way, if I can put it in that kind of trite way, is to look at the truth and to try and establish for the historical record what went on, and to try and bring things to a head there, rather than just try and curtail the past and pretend it didn't happen with a statute of limitation, which, as I say, is drawing criticism, both from within Northern Ireland itself, but from legal circles around the world, and as we've seen this week, even in the corridors of power in Capitol Hill, where the Americans are incredibly heavily invested in Northern Ireland and the Northern Ireland peace process and the Good Friday Agreement, and a lot of people are very knowledgeable and played a very big part, both publicly and behind the scenes, over the last 30 years as well. So it's drawn a lot of criticism and a lot of heat, and it's really whether the government can actually come up with some proposals that do command more respect, and part of that would be, I'm afraid, to start to say, look, let's look at what the British state did in Northern Ireland as well, because that's the sticking point here.
Thank you very much for whizzing us through what is a very, very complicated issue, of course. Now, Kevin Meager there, who's an author and commentator on British and Irish politics. Now, hundreds of curry houses are at risk of closing as the cost of living squeeze continues. Fuel and ingredient prices have risen drastically, leading to this warning by the spice business.
Yes, well, monthly electricity bills for the UK's 8,000 Indian restaurants are apparently up by £640 to £960. That's what trade magazine Spice says. But restaurant and takeaway owners fear that increasing prices will hit their trade even further.
Well, joining us now to tell us a bit more about this is Anna Malley, founder of the Spice Business magazine and, of course, the British Curry Awards, which I went to this year. I even managed to wander on stage at one point, so thank you very much for having me at that one. How bleak is the picture now for our much-loved curry houses?
Yes, Patrick, thank you for having me here. Yes, it is very much challenging year for us. Of course, all the product you have seen is gone double, and some of the prices restaurants are not able to pass it on because they think that it could be declining their customer to spending. So they are not passing on the energy bill and all the product. If you look at the oil price, vegetable oil, we are the restaurant highest user. Gas also, we are the highest user, and it's gone almost double. 16-litre oil we used to buy for almost 16, 17 pounds, and it's now gone to 26 pounds. And it has quite costly, for the delivering the food to the customer and diners. And diners also, they fear to spending money as much they used to because of their own cost has been gone up, and so it is very, very challenging. And if you look at the prediction was inflation could remain 2%, but it's gone almost 6%. So it is very much worrying factor at the moment. And hundreds of restaurants we have actually spoken to, and we have come across is quite difficulties for if government not come up with a good solution to stay the price and keep the price down and control the price, actually. Otherwise, a lot of restaurants will disappear.
And how, inevitably, I would assume, you'll have to pass these prices on to your customers. I mean, how high are prices expected to rise, sort of, compared to where they are now across this year for your customers?
Well, if you compare it to tikka masala, maybe that'll be the good one. It's our favorite dish in this country and the national dish. I think people are average selling $9.95, $11.95, to $8.95 to those kind of racket. And if they really put the cost on this, obviously it will go almost 13, 14 pounds to make money, because not only the cost of the product, it's also other things has been increased for online. Also, rather than they have to put up with delivering the food is another price. There's a cost almost everywhere, and they're not able to pass it on because of the fear in case they lose their customer. So they are, managing with their own profit perhaps. And it is difficult here. Some of the restaurants are disappearing. So government need to immediately, to inject somewhere to helping those restaurants in the whole hospitality. I'm talking about the Indian restaurant. I'm talking about pubs and other restaurants as well. We are all in the same boat. The VAT gonna 31st of March, VAT gonna go back to again. So it will be very difficult for a value-added tax to be paid to each restaurant. It will be very difficult. So government has to intervene and helping us to survive and save hundreds of jobs right across the country.
Yeah, indeed, and that's exactly the point that I wanted to talk to you about now, because the hospitality sector in general is, of course, a massive employer, but certainly as well in the kind of Indian, Bangladeshi cuisine element of it as well. It's a huge employer, isn't it? And so if those costs just become unmanageable and various places have to shut down, that's going to have a big impact on a lot of people, isn't it?
Yes, it is indeed. It's already happening. I see a lot of restaurants are disappearing, and I think, look at the rate. They have to pay rate. They have to everything now. You have to pay for it, and of course, restaurants are facing difficulties to pass it on because of the competition, because of the fear. So it's only way to survive. The government has to intervene in the hotel hospitality industry to survive. Hundreds of restaurants to save and keep the high street going. And I am sure you agree with me. Indian restaurant and all the pubs and restaurants, they are the really lifeline of the high street. And if those restaurants and pubs disappear, it will become a ghost town of the high street, because big giant, all the supermarket, everything already outside the high street. And so the high street is only the lifeline for the hospitality industry, doing cafe and bar, so on. So the government immediately need to be take attention and helping our industry to survive.
Indeed. And well, look, good luck, and thank you very, very much for taking the time to come on the show. Anam Ali there, of course, who was founder of the British Curry Awards, the fantastic British Curry Awards, I must say, and industry magazine Spice as well.
Yes, well...
thank you very much.
To end that section, actually, we've just had Anthony email in. Anthony says, my mate took his family out for a curry last week, and when he saw the size of the bill, he fell into a coma.
No. For a second, I thought it was going to be like, a story about, gosh, and the price really went through the roof, absolutely no. He's done a funny, hasn't he, Tony?
Well, I think it's an all right dad joke, personally, Anthony, but there you go. We were discussing the Platinum Jubilee earlier on the show, and we want to bring you a sneak peek for the next hour, because Conservative MP Andrew Rosendale has told GB News that the Queen deserves a fantastic celebration in her Platinum Jubilee year and does not need to be upset by the Duke of York's worries. Speaking exclusively to GB News presenter Gloria De Piero, he said that the legal battle between the Duke and Virginia Giuffre was a private matter for the royal.
I think the royal family and the Queen, the monarchy, is above politics. We can disagree on political issues. We can have different religions, different backgrounds. Everything can divide us. The one thing that should never divide us is love of country. And the Queen has been a magnificent servant, not only of the United Kingdom, but of the Commonwealth. And I think that politics shouldn't be just about politicians. A political system, constitution, you sometimes need someone above politics. And in this country, we have someone who's above all of it and does the job so well. And it's also a constitutional thing, because at the end of the day, if you have somebody that is neutral politically, they can bind the country together through times of crisis and difficult periods, but also people don't dislike them. I mean, I know huge numbers of people in all political parties, especially in the Labour Party, who deeply patriotic and love the Queen. Not everybody is woke in the Labour Party, lots that aren't. Sadly, there are some that are. I know you're not, Gloria, but there are some that are. And I think it's very sad, because we can differ on, how much public spending and other environmental issues or whatever it might be. But the one thing I think should unite most people is love of country, and the Queen's sort of like the head of the British family. So I think the monarchy is a good thing.
And being such a proud monarchist as you are, the Prince Andrew affair must have been very difficult for anybody who believed in the royal family.
I don't know what's gone on there. Clearly it's very difficult and it's very upsetting for the Queen, especially in this year of the Queen's Jubilee. I want this year to be a wonderful year for the Queen. She deserves a fantastic celebration, and This is a distraction which the Queen didn't need. A country doesn't need it. So it is a private matter, really, for Prince Andrew to resolve, and I really hope it can be resolved very quickly, because I want to celebrate a wonderful year for the Queen as she reaches 70 years on the throne, and I think that's something we should be focusing on rather than issues such as the problems that Prince Andrew is facing.
Yes, indeed. Well, you can watch the whole interview on The Briefing with Gloria Di Piero, who has just sashayed into the other side of the studio over there in just a few minutes' time. Now, I just wanted to just take this opportunity to do a cheeky little plug. We're going to finish the show with some views, but first, it really is all about me, because I have a new show coming here to GB News, everybody. The Friday Night Feast, which will be 7 p.m. until 9 p.m. You guessed it, every single Friday. And the first one starts tomorrow. So I'll be, I mean, it's chaos. It's going to be chaos.
So what are you going to be getting up to?
It's a potent combination of, news, but taking a new angle on it. I want to move the story forward a bit, really. It's going to be a bit of a synopsis of the week, so there'll be loads of us for us to get stuck into. But it's about taking the angle that I think we should be looking at, not the one that maybe is leading all the mainstream media. And also, I'm going to be doing some quite nutty stuff as well. So
that does not surprise me.
Challenge Christys, right? The first one of which I'm about to go and film today. We'll have to tune in to find out what it is, where you, the viewer, the listener, get to challenge me to do something, and I have to do it. So the wackier, the better. So you can get in touch with me at that. And I have a new...
That could backfire.
Yeah, probably. And also, we're going to be picking a national treasure as well. So anyway, look, there's a cheeky little promo, so we can have a look at it now.
Hello, mate. Step into the studio, please.
How are you keeping? Busy?
I've got a brand new show coming on GB News called The Friday Night Feast.
Oh, yeah?
And I'm going to take a new news angle on the week's biggest stories. Move it forward. I want to talk about what I think we should be talking about, not what we're being told that we have to. Right, well, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it. A brand new show right here on GB News. The Friday Night Feast, 7 p.m. until 9 p.m. with me, Patrick Christys. What could possibly go wrong, eh? Oh, I've left my wallet in a cab. Yes, well, there we go, and it's going to be, it's going to be a bit wild, so you might want to tune in.
Yes, well, let's finish off the programme with some of your views. I have to say, we did speak about Northern Ireland not long ago, and there's not much love in our inbox for America. People are saying they should stick their nose out of it because everything they get involved in turns to so not a lot of love for America there. We spoke about mental health. Adam here says, we're surprised to hear that it was under 50% in that survey who stated that their mental health is worse now than it was before the pandemic, thought it would have been higher. But having said that, my mental health may well be better, actually, as I now work from home and can watch you, Patrick and Mercy whilst I do so. So thank you, Adam.
I think it works both ways for people, can't it? Because some people... It was absolutely devastating, the isolation of it all, being shut down, working from home, missing the traditional working environment, etc., etc. Whereas other people went completely the other way, didn't they? And they were like, this actually is great. Not the coronavirus, obviously, but there's the idea of the setup, working from home and this kind of stuff. So I think it can go one way or the other for people, can't it?
Yes, and we spoke about political impartiality in school, potential indoctrination from activist teachers. Dan got in touch, who says, when vast numbers of children leave school innumerate and unable to read proficiently, after over 10 years in the system, we have to question current priorities of many teachers.
I agree. And I think one of the big things that we do incredibly poorly in this country is learn foreign languages. I mean, I can remember going on a very ill-fated French exchange to a chap called Louis Perrault, the most French lad you've ever met in your entire life. And I couldn't speak a word of French. I've been learning it for about 7 years. And all of that was completely fluent in English. And that seems to be the case wherever you go in the world.
Yes, that is true. Well, that's it from us here at To The Point. But don't go away, because up next is The Briefing with Gloria Di Piero. Thank you for getting in touch with all of your views today, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Here's your weather.
I'm Alex Deakin with your latest weather update from the Met Office. As we've been hearing on the news, Storm Eunice is approaching the UK. It's going to hit the country during Friday with potentially damaging gusts of wind and some snowfall. Storm Dudley's out of the way, but here comes Eunice, brewing up down to the southwest, really intensifying over the next 12 hours before moving across the country during Friday. The strongest winds across England and Wales, but some snow likely across Scotland and Northern Ireland. A bit of snow still in the showers across northern Scotland today, but certainly for much of the eastern side of the UK today is just a bright and breezy day. The wind's continuing to ease down after Storm Dudley. Quite a bit of cloud for Wales, Northern Ireland. The odd shower, quite mild in the south, 11 degrees on the south coast. Across Scotland, Northern England, 6 or 7 Celsius. But the action really starts tonight as we start to see this storm system moving in. Initially heavy rain coming into Wales, southwest England. Heavy rain for a time for Northern Ireland, but quickly turning to snow. So that is another cause for concern tonight as that snow moves in, and then we'll see some snow over the far north of England and southern Scotland. Temperatures holding up across the south, frost likely in northern Scotland before the winds pick up. And the winds are really the big issue with Storm Eunice as it moves in during Friday. The isobars pinching together there. So it's South Wales, southwest England that bears the brunt on Friday morning, but then strong winds for northwest England moving down across the Midlands into eastern England later on Friday. An amber warning in place covering most of England and Wales, a yellow warning for the snow further north. Those gusts of wind on the south, 80, 90, possibly around some coasts, maybe 100 miles an hour. Dangerous waves likely certainly to cause some issues with power and the transport network. The snow will continue on and off for much of the day across central and particularly eastern Scotland, so that could really build up through the day. That is another area for concern. Very windy as these showers move through. There'll be some afternoon sunshine and those winds slowly easing in the southwest later on. But serious weather conditions on the way. Keep up to date with the weather warnings on the Met Office website.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the question.